I'd lived on this land since before Willow Creek Estates existed. Back when it was nothing but rolling hills, mesquite thickets, and the occasional coyote howling at the moon. My name's Jacob Moore, and my ranch, 40 acres of sweat, dust, and barbed wire, was carved out of my father's bones and my mother's grit. It wasn't just home, it was legacy. Then came the developers. They turned what used to be cattle trails into winding cul-de-sacs, painted over prairie grass with perfectly manicured lawns. And worst of all, they brought the HOA, Homeowners Association, bureaucracy wrapped in neighborly smiles. At first, it was just nuisance-level noise, mailed flyers about community, potlucks I never attended, and passive-aggressive notes about curb appeal. I ignored them. My property wasn't part of the HOA, and I intended to keep it that way. But everything changed when Karen Baldwin moved in. She rolled into the neighborhood like a storm wrapped in pearls, mid-50s, blonde bob sharp enough to slice fruit, and a voice that could curdle fresh milk. Karen didn't just join the HOA. She became it, self-appointed enforcer, clipboard queen. Her house sat at the edge of the new development, right up against my eastern pasture. Too close for comfort, but just far enough that I figured we could ignore each other. I figured wrong. It started with a knock on my door one Saturday morning. She was dressed like she'd come from a garden party, lavender blazer, white pants, and that smug little dog in her arms. Duchess, she called it, a teacup Pomeranian that looked like it hated air. Mr. Moore, she said, barely disguising the disdain in her tone, I'd like to discuss your access road. My what? That dirt path that cuts behind my property. It leads to a public nature trail, yes. I believe it's only fair the community be granted access. That road's on my ranch, I replied. Private property. Been there long before your development popped up. She smiled like a lawyer just before a lawsuit. You don't actually think a single-lane gravel track belongs exclusively to you, do you? It's a natural asset. It's a utility road for hay trucks and livestock, not for HOA yoga moms. Her smile vanished. I'll be filing a petition. You'll hear from the board. I'm not part of your board. Her eyes narrowed. Yet, the next morning, a sign appeared at the end of my road. Community access point. Coming soon. I tore it down. A week later, Karen returned, not to talk, but to test me. I found her trying to walk down the path with Duchess in tow, pretending like nothing was amiss. I stopped her halfway, arms crossed. You're trespassing. I'm exercising, she chirped. The HOA granted preliminary access. I pointed to the chain link fence and the rusted, private property sign hanging on it. That's not just decoration. I'll call the authorities, she snapped. Be my guest. So I locked the gate, installed a keypad entry, reinforced it with steel posts, and chained it shut every night. My land, my rules. 3 days later, at 6:42 a.m., I woke to the sound of clanging metal and shrieking outrage. Karen was at the gate, shaking it with both hands like it had personally offended her. Open this gate, Jacob. You're violating community access rights. I pulled on my boots and walked over. There are no community rights on my land. I've already alerted the HOA and they support me. They don't have jurisdiction here, she glared, finger trembling. This isn't over. She stormed off, heels kicking up dust. I figured that'd be the end of it. But 10 minutes later, I saw flashing red and blue lights cutting through the morning haze. 2 police cruisers pulled into my drive like I was hosting a hostage situation. Karen stood by the gate, arms folded triumphantly, Duchess tucked under one elbow like a furry gavel. The officer stepped out, calm but wary. Sir, we received a 911 call. A report of unlawful obstruction of public access. I stared at him, then at Karen. You've got to be kidding me. Do I look like I'm kidding? She said, but I wasn't rattled. Not even close. Because Karen hadn't done her homework. She didn't know who she just called the cops on. And she definitely didn't know who ran the local police department, not yet. I didn't argue with the officers. I invited them in for coffee. Karen stood outside the gate like a dethroned queen, lips pursed, furious the show wasn't going her way. Her calls had summoned the law, but the law wasn't quite what she expected. Sergeant Lee, a local with a drawl like slow molasses, removed his hat as I handed him a steaming mug. Jacob, just routine, he said. Karen called in a disturbance. Claimed you're blocking a community trail. We're obligated to check it out. I nodded. You're doing your job. No hard feelings. Karen pressed up against the gate, hands cupped around her mouth like a megaphone. He's lying. That road's a public asset. He's keeping the neighborhood from accessing nature. That's a safety concern. Sergeant Lee's partner, a fresh-faced rookie named Collins, muttered under his breath, "She's been calling dispatch twice a day for the past week." Lee shot him a look that said, "Quiet, kid." I handed Collins a mug too. "Appreciate you. Coming out. You need any documentation? I got land deeds going back 3 generations. Lee shook his head. "I know the history. Your land's yours. Always has been. But since she made it a 911 call, we got to loop in the department." "That won't be necessary," I said, glancing at my watch. Right on cue, I heard tires crunching gravel. A sleek black department SUV pulled into the driveway. Lights off, but presence undeniable. The door swung open, and out stepped Chief Maria Delgado, my wife, my partner, and the last person Karen Baldwin expected to see. Maria strode toward the gate with the effortless authority of someone who didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her uniform was pressed sharp, badge gleaming in the sunlight. Oak brown eyes took in the scene, calculating and unreadable. Karen's jaw slackened. "Oh, thank God," she called out, waving. Finally, someone in charge. Maria didn't break stride. She walked right past Karen, nodded at Lee, and came to stand beside me. Then she turned, facing the gate, like it was a courtroom. "Ma'am," she said calmly, "I understand you placed a 911 call regarding public endangerment. Would you care to elaborate?" Karen blinked. "Well, yes. He's blocking access to a trail. The HOA approved usage. We have people who walk their dogs there, who jog. Are you a member of the police department, Mom?" "No, but..." "Are you a legal authority on property access rights?" Karen hesitated. "I'm the HOA compliance chairwoman." Maria raised one brow. "Not the same thing." Sergeant Lee cleared his throat. "Chief, just to clarify, the path in question lies entirely within Jacob's property lines. We verified using county maps." Maria nodded. "Which makes this a civil issue, not a criminal one." Karen's voice pitched higher. "You don't understand. He's acting like he owns the place." "He does own the place," Maria said, flatly. Karen's face reddened, but Maria wasn't done. "I'd also like to note," she continued, "that placing a 911 call under false pretenses is a criminal offense. Dispatch was told there was a safety emergency." "There isn't one," Karen sputtered. "I didn't mean false. I meant he's denying us access." And Maria took a step closer to the gate. "Ma'am, you called emergency services to settle a property dispute. That wastes resources. If you have further complaints, file them through civil court. But do not use 911 again unless someone is actively bleeding." Karen glanced between the officers, realizing she had miscalculated. "Badly. And one more thing," Maria added, her voice low, cool. you might want to stop targeting my husband. Because every call, every complaint, every documented incident, it's all going into a file, a harassment file." Karen's mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. Nothing came out. Maria turned to me and smiled. "Coffee left for me?" "Always," I said, opening the gate. We walked back toward the house, leaving Karen frozen on the gravel, Duchess still trembling in her arms. Collins gave a low whistle. "Your wife always like that," Lee chuckled. "Only when someone's dumb enough to poke the bear. That should have ended it." A rational person would have walked away, but Karen wasn't rational. She wasn't just embarrassed, she was enraged, and people like her, they don't retreat, they reload. For a few weeks, things went quiet. Karen retreated into the shadows of the HOA like a spider nursing a vendetta. There were no more 911 calls, no more gate-shaking tantrums, just eerie silence, the kind that settles before a storm. But I knew, better than to think she was finished. People like her don't give up. They regroup. It started small. One morning, I found my fence tags, the bright orange reflectors that marked my boundaries for night deliveries, missing, gone without a trace. Then a few of my cattle spooked for no reason. Corral gates suspiciously unlatched. A pattern emerged. Minor annoyances, all perfectly deniable. I replaced the tags, reinforced the locks, didn't say a word. Maria wanted to step in, but I told her not yet. If she's trying to provoke me, I said, I won't give her the satisfaction. But then came the letter. It arrived in a crisp, white envelope, stamped with the HOA logo and full of bureaucratic venom. Inside was a notice of easement violation, a claim that my access road, despite being on private land, violated a newly proposed community ordinance, mandating all pathways in Willow Creek be open to pedestrian traffic. It wasn't law. It wasn't even legally enforceable. But it was clever, because Karen knew how rumors worked. Within days, neighbors started knocking, some politely, some not. One woman in yoga pants accused me of hoarding the view. A man with a golf visor demanded reasonable accommodation for seniors. None of them cared about facts. They had Karen's version, the version that painted me as the grumpy land baron blocking good people from enjoying their nature. Then the real move came. Karen called a special HOA meeting, open to concerned community members. She distributed flyers like confetti, posted in mailboxes, dog parks, even stuck one on my fence. Maria warned me, she's rallying them. She's not coming at you legally. She's coming at you socially. I decided to go. The meeting was held in the Willow Creek Clubhouse, a sterile, over-air-conditioned building with walls the color of old oatmeal. It was packed. Dozens of neighbors sat in fold-out chairs, sipping lemon water and murmuring like sheep before a storm. Karen stood at the front, backlit by a projector screen that displayed a satellite image of my ranch. I want to thank everyone for coming, she began, smiling like a televangelist. We're here tonight to discuss the preservation of community, values, and access. Her tone was saccharine, but her eyes darted to me like daggers. We have an unfortunate situation. A landowner, who has benefited from proximity to our neighborhood, is denying us shared use of a natural trail. It's not about law. It's about community, about spirit. The crowd murmured approval. Someone clapped. I stood. I didn't. Benefit from proximity, I said calmly. I was here first. Your development came later. And that road, it's not a trail. It's for livestock. Hey, fencing crews. Karen cut in, and yet it conveniently connects to the public trailhead. Because my family built it, long before that trailhead existed. She stepped forward, voice rising. So you admit you're blocking us out. I'm protecting my property from trespass and misuse. That's legal and reasonable. A man in the back shouted, "What are you afraid of, more? We're just trying to walk our dogs." I scanned the room. Half were glaring. Some looked uncertain. But none of them knew the full story. They didn't see the sabotage, the broken gates, the schemes. Then Karen dropped her final card. "I've drafted a petition," she said, holding up a stack of papers, "to formally request the county reevaluate the easement. If we get enough signatures, the board may consider invoking eminent domain." That got the crowd roaring. I didn't flinch. I just stared at her. "So this was never about a walk. It's about control." She smiled. "It's about what's fair." I left without another word. Back at home, I handed Maria the flyer. She read it, jaw tightening. "She's gone too far," she said. "Petitioning for eminent domain on private ranch land. That's not just social pressure. That's political. She's banking on the HOA, giving her leverage," I said. "But I have something she doesn't." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Oh, history. And a very long paper trail." She smirked. "Time to go on offense?" I nodded. "Time to shut this down, publicly, legally, and permanently." Because Karen wanted a war. She was about to find out that picking a fight with a rancher is one thing. Picking one with a rancher married to the police chief? That's a different beast altogether. We hit back with precision. No yelling, no posturing. Just facts, leverage, and timing. First, I contacted my attorney, Roy Beckett, a crusty old ranch law specialist, with a memory like a ledger and a laugh like gravel in a tin can. He'd helped my father decades ago when a logging company tried to carve a highway through our land. He owed us a favor, and he delivered. Within 48 hours, Roy unearthed documents Karen had never anticipated. Ironclad records dating back to 1904, showing that the entire road, not just the access point, was privately constructed and protected under a generational land trust. Even better, a clause from the original town charter exempted all ranch parcels over 50 acres from any retroactive HOA governance. That was checkmate, but we weren't finished. Maria, as chief of police, couldn't act directly on civil matters. But what she could do was request an official audit of all 911 misuse complaints filed from the HOA district over the last 6 months. Karen's name appeared on 14 of them, each one triggered without real cause. Each one tied up emergency resources. A few were borderline false reports, legally actionable. That went straight to the county board. Still, Karen strutted like the queen of spades, thinking her little petition would force the county to consider her case. That illusion shattered on the day of the public hearing. I arrived early, dressed in jeans and boots, the way my grandfather would have. Maria sat beside me in uniform, not as my wife, but as a respected official. Roy Beckett carried a 3-inch binder and a flash drive. Karen, flanked by 2 HOA sycophants, wore a fitted pantsuit and a grin so tight it looked painful. The county hall buzzed with tension. Cameras from the local news had shown up. Karen's doing, I'm sure. She wanted attention. She was about to get it. The chairwoman of the board, Councilwoman Reese, opened the floor. "We are here today to review a petition filed by residents of Willow Creek HOA requesting the county reevaluate the easement status of a private road located within Jacob Moore's ranch property." Karen stepped up to speak first. Her words were slick, talking about unity, access, how the land was a shared community asset, and I was acting hostile toward progress. She even threw in a line about bridging divides in a politically fractured world. It was empty theatre. Then Roy stood, and in that gravel voice, he laid out a century of property law like a gavel falling. He showed maps, deeds, signatures, from men long buried in the soil. He cited the town's own charter. He explained, slowly and clearly, that no matter how many signatures Karen gathered, the HOA had zero legal standing on my land. Then came Maria. She walked to the podium, calm as a mountain breeze. As Chief of Police, I'd like to submit a report regarding the abuse of emergency services stemming from this conflict. She paused, then added, including the coordinated harassment of a private citizen, who also happens to be my husband. That hit like a thunderclap. The room fell dead quiet. Karen's face went ghost white. Councilwoman Reese reviewed the stack of reports, deeds, and complaints, then leaned into the mic. The board finds no grounds to support this petition. Furthermore, we advise the HOA to cease all efforts to regulate or influence Mr. Moore's property. Continued escalation will be interpreted as targeted harassment and may invite legal repercussions. Karen tried to protest, stammering something about appealing, but the council had already moved on. It was over. Outside, the reporters swarmed. Karen dodged them, face hidden behind her clipboard. Meanwhile, neighbors who had once glared at me now nodded politely. A few even apologized. But I wasn't interested in vindication. I was interested in peace. Back at the ranch, I walked the access road at sunset. Maria joined me, hand in mine, the light dipping gold across the hills. She's not going to stop entirely, Maria said, but she's neutralized. Good enough, I said. Let her stew. She'll either back off or hang herself with her own rope. Maria smirked. And if she tries another 911 stunt? I shrugged. Then the chief will have to handle it. Guess I'm sleeping with internal affairs. I laughed. Behind us, the ranch stood tall and quiet. My land, my rules. And the gate, still locked, still mine.